Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
That's the Spencer Davis Group bringing us back. Welcome back, 17 Till. I'm Jim Blasingame. Thanks for staying with me. Hope you check out my website when you get a chance, smallbusinessadvocate.com. Lots of stuff that will help you with your small business. Having a great visit with our good friend, Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of the great state of New Mexico, the honorary chairman of Our America, and his new book is called The 7 Principles of Good Government. Gary, when's that coming out?
Well, we found looks like a major publisher is going to actually take it up and do it. They said they enjoyed the book. They thought it would sell a lot of copies.
Good deal.
So that's really wonderful. Yeah.
Well, we like telling my audience about it because we need more. We need good government. Right now, we don't have good government. Right now, frankly, Governor Johnson, we have lousy government. We have, in my opinion, something that borders on, it is incompetent government, and frankly, it borders on criminal. I think some of this behavior that we're seeing in Washington, D.C. is borders on criminality. What do you think, Governor?
Well, if I could indulge everybody here and really just very quickly talk about the 7 principles of good government. I think it's 7 principles of good government. I think it's 7 principles of good life. It's 7 principles of good business, which is starting out, become reality-driven. Don't kid yourself or others. Find out what's what and base your decisions and actions on that. Number 2, always be honest and tell the truth. It's extremely difficult to do any damage to somebody who's willing to tell the truth.
That'll be novel in Washington, D.C.
3 would be always do what's right and fair. Remember, the more you actually accomplish, the louder your critics are going to become.
Right.
Continue to do what you think is right. You've got to maintain your integrity. 4, determine your goal. Develop a plan to reach that goal. And then act. Don't procrastinate. 5, make sure everybody who ought to know what you're doing knows what you're doing. Communicate. 6, don't hesitate to deliver bad news. There's always time to fix things. Henry Kissinger said, anything that can be revealed eventually should be revealed immediately. Mm-hmm. And then last, do whatever it takes to get your job done. If you don't have a job that you love enough to do what it takes to get your job done, then quit. And tomorrow, get one that you enjoy, get one that boils your blood and that you'll end up making a difference.
Well, that sounds like a campaign platform to me, Governor Johnson.
As governor of New Mexico, I delivered a State of the State address that was based on those 7 principles of good government. I think maybe everybody here in this state's kind of ready to gag, or maybe everybody's just hearing them for the first time.
Well, I think they make a lot of sense. And let's talk. One thing I want to talk about is when you say reality-driven, how do we get some? I mean, Washington D.C. When I notice what they're doing in Washington, and on Capitol Hill and on Pennsylvania Avenue, Governor, I feel like I'm reading a Bizarro World comic book. Where everything's backward, and where everything's backwards from what you and I think, and it makes sense to the people in that world. That's Bizarro World.
Well, reality-driven, yes. I do think that what's happening right now in Washington is really about anything but reality. The game that goes on so often in politics is underestimating expenses. In this case, we have Medicaid, we have Medicare, we have Social Security. I mean, to a degree, it's kind of a guess because it's an open-ended checkbook. There's no fixed amount of money that gets spent.
There's nothing actuarial about it.
Well, the actuarial part of it always understates the expenses and always overstates the revenues.
Right.
That's government.
Right.
And if you just start there when it comes to reality-driven, you might assume a little bit less revenue, and you might assume a little bit more expense.
Well, let me tell you what's worse than even that. They overestimate the revenue, and then they borrow that revenue or steal it. Actually, they stole it. They stole it and left an IOU.
That's exactly right.
It's not only, folks, they not only stole the money they overestimated for the Social Security, but they have no way to pay it back except from you and me. You and I have to pay that back. So we basically, Governor Johnson, basically that means that when we have to pay those IOUs, that means we will have paid for that twice.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's Social Security. And when it comes to Social Security, when it comes to the reform of Social Security, I think that we should understand that Social Security is a small problem relative to Medicare.
Yeah.
Medicare is going to virtually engulf the entire federal budget here in a fairly short amount of time unless it's brought under control. Social Security, very simply, is a system that needs to take in more money than what it takes out. So I'm not advocating raising taxes of any kind, but Social Security is a system that can be brought really solvent by raising the retirement age, by perhaps a means testing, and then perhaps a slight benefit reduction, and a slight reduction in the escalator that's built
Something's
going to
have to happen.
How much money that saves.
Well, we just have to come to terms with the fact that a decision is going to have to be made. Is it going to be? Are we going to make it in proactively, or are we going to make it reactively when the collapse happens?
Well, and the collapse is going to be the bond market. It's going to be a European country bringing their debts to market with no appetite for that debt. Yield's going to go up a couple of points to attract more investors. Still no investors, and now all of a sudden, government debt's going to be thrown under the microscope.
And we will
worldwide,
no longer be able to say with the full force and credit of the United States. We'll no longer be able to say that at that point, folks. And if you think back on what happened to Lehman Brothers was caused the collapse of the financial industry back in September of '98 over one weekend. Of 2008 over one weekend. That's what Governor Johnson just described is exactly what happened to them. That's a canary in the mine shaft for the United States. 10 till, right back with Governor Gary Johnson. Stay with us.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited.